So she goes on to tell us in chapter 5 that when it came to performing, she really came alive, and she had taken enough gymnastics classes to be able to move really well. She says, when I was 5, I entered a local dance competition. My talent was a dance routine done wearing a top hat and twirling a cane. I won. Then my mother started taking me around to contests all over the region. She says she worked her way through the talent circuit, winning a regional contest in Baton Rouge. Before too long, she said her parents had set their sights on bigger opportunities than what we could accomplish picking up prizes in school gymnasiums. When they saw an advertisement in the newspaper for an open call for the Mickey Mouse Club, they suggested that we go. So they go all the way to Atlanta. But the problem was they were actually looking for people who were over the age of 10. So she wasn't quite what they were looking for. She was actually 8. And when they asked her, how old are you? She lied and said 9. So, I mean, it was kind of a useless lie because she still wasn't the right age. But she, for her audition, sang Sweet George Brown while doing a dance routine, adding in some gymnastics flips. They narrowed down the group to a couple of thousand. And one of the girls that was cast was a beautiful girl from California, a few years older than me, named Carrie Russell. She said there was a girl from Pennsylvania called Christina Aguilera. And unfortunately, though Carrie Russell made the cut, she and Christina did not make the cut this time. But the casting director, Matt Casilla, told them to go to New York because he said she does have a lot of talent. She's not quite old enough for what we're looking for. And she said that they could probably get on the show later when they were a little bit older. But he recommended that they look up the specific agent that he liked who could help young performers get a start in theater. So that's what they did. But they couldn't go right away. They're poor as church mice. And so it's all hands on deck here. So Britney, at the age of 8, starts waiting tables. Really interesting. But I think it must have been like some kind of a mom and pop establishment because there's no way she's waiting tables in some kind of chain restaurant. But she says that for 6 months, the whole family tried to earn money. And she went to work waiting tables at Lexi's seafood restaurant, Granny's Seafood in Delhi, to help out. She said the restaurant had a terrible fishy smell. Still, the food was amazing, unbelievably good. And she said it became the new hangout for all the kids. The deli's back room was where my brother and all his friends would get drunk in high school. Meanwhile, out on the floor at age 9, I was cleaning shellfish and serving plates of food while doing my prissy dancing in my cute little outfits. My mom sent footage of me to the agent Matt had recommended, Nancy Carson. In the video, I was singing Shine On, Harvest Moon. It worked. She asked us to come to New York. So they go to New York, they go to Manhattan, and there she is. She goes to the talent agency. She goes to the office. She sings the song. And she was officially signed by the talent agency. Meanwhile, her mom's been pregnant, and a new baby has entered the scene, Jamie Lynn. Everybody in the family's name is Lynn. Like, it's hard to keep up with who is who. Everyone's name says June or Jean or Lynn. I mean, it's like everybody just recycles the same names here. But anyway, Jamie Lynn, she's born. And she said that right after the baby was born, she had this dance competition, and her mom was, fixing some ratty little costume that she had that she was going to wear in the competition. And halfway through it, her mom just started acting kind of weird. She was hand sewing up this little hole in the costume, and suddenly she just stood up and threw the costume away. And Britney pitched a fit. I need that costume. It might be a, crappy little costume, but I still need it. Why'd you throw my costume away? And then suddenly, her mother's standing there, and blood just starts gushing out of her body all over the floor. She was having postpartum hemorrhaging. Obviously, Britney knew nothing about this. And so she is freaking out. Blood's everywhere. She said that she's screaming for her father. What's wrong with her? What's wrong with her? And her dad rushed in and drove her to the hospital. Britney's in the back seat screaming, something cannot be wrong with my mom. Okay, I think we can all agree, super dramatic. And if you were gushing blood in the front seat and trying to get to the hospital, the last thing you would need would be the 8-year-old in the back seat screaming at the top of their lungs, something cannot be wrong with my mom, And I'm not saying that Britney had no reason to be scared. I'm sure that would have been super scary. But could somebody not have stayed back at the house with her? Because you do not need this in the back seat. Anyway, Britney says, I was 9, and to see a river of blood flowing out of my mother was traumatic for me. And I was terrified. I had never seen that much blood before. And she'd never heard of postpartum hemorrhaging. Why would she have? Later, come to find out, it's not super uncommon, but that wasn't something that she had ever expected to see. So it was really scary for her. And I think that this story is really important because it highlights the fact that at any moment tragedy can strike here in this family. It's like nothing is stable. Nothing feels safe. Everything is unsafe. In her world, there's always trauma around any corner. And anytime you think that things have gotten normal. No. Terrifying episode is just waiting in the shadows. The situation with her brother, terrifying. Being pulled away from her grandmother when, she had always loved and known that to be a safe place. And then suddenly out of nowhere, I can't go there anymore. Her mother having this baby and then just bleeding everywhere. Everything's normal. She's fixing my dance costume. And then suddenly she's gushing blood from between her legs. Terrifying. The family finances are great. And then suddenly they've been thrown into poverty to such an extent. She's now waiting tables at the age of 8 and 9. Everything just feels like a roller coaster ride. And all of these chapters just highlight the chaos and the fear. There's no equilibrium. There's no place that it's okay, I can just kind of let my shoulders down. I can breathe, No, don't ever do that, because just as soon as you settle into something, your mom's going to start bleeding from her vagina. It's just everything's going to get crazy really, really fast. I think this inability to feel safe in childhood is what's going to really make her sort of a clingy person later on in life. Because she's got to cling to the things that make her feel safe. And it's what we're going to see her just continually falling instantaneously in love with these guys who she barely knows. But if they make her feel any kind of a way, any kind of safe, it's I'm going to hold on to that and I'm not going to let it go. And it's going to become an issue. She tells another story that sort of highlights this dramatic way in which she would express herself if she felt fear that love or that safety was escaping her. She tells a story about how one time when she was in gymnastics class, and this story comes right after her being scared that her mom was dying. One time she was in gymnastics class, and there is that window, where the parents watch the kids. And her mom would always stay in that window, and she had kind of subconsciously made this part of her experience when she was in gymnastics. She'd always check the window to see if her mom was there. And one time she looked up and her mom was not there. And Britney falls to the mat. And she's sobbing and she's crying. You would have thought somebody had just told her that her mom was shot. Loses it. Completely and totally unable to get herself up off the mat. The instructor comes over and is it's okay. She probably just went next door to Walmart. It's going to be fine. And lo and behold, that's exactly what her mother had done. Her mom had gone to run an errand over at Walmart. Not a big deal. But Britney just completely lost it when she thought that her mom had stepped away. From that day forward, her mother never left any of her gymnastics classes again. And, for the next several years, never left her side. Because life has always felt so chaotic and you can be going along swimmingly and then everything falls apart, her reactions are outsized to so many things. Now, I think her reaction to her mom, bleeding everywhere, makes sense. That would have been really a scary sight to see. Would it have been annoying having her scream in the back seat, something cannot be wrong with my mom? Yes. But you kind of get where she's coming from on that one. This, though, I think is more indicative of probably what people experienced a lot more often with her, in that her mom steps away, she doesn't know where her mom is, and then she can't regulate herself, and she freaks out. Because as far as she's experienced in life, this could mean something really terrible. Maybe her mom has gone, and maybe her mom's not coming back. Anyway, she says that with my family, anything could go wrong at any time. I had no power there. Only while performing was I truly invincible. Standing in a Manhattan conference room in front of a woman who could make my dreams come true, at least one thing was completely within my control. Chapter 6. She says when she was 10, she was invited to be in a contest on Star Search. On the first show, I sang a spunky version of a song that I'd heard sung by Judy Garland, I Don't Care, and she says she got 3.75 stars. Now, she was in competition against this other little girl who was singing opera, but she won out on that girl. But the next contestant she was against was a boy named Marty Thomas. He was 12. And, they were friendly. They were playing basketball together before the show. And she said that when they were waiting for their scores, Marty and she were being interviewed. And this old host comes up to her, and I got to find the clip. I know it's floating around there. I saw it the other day. I've got to put it in here because it's so gross. Okay, she's 8 years old. This isn't a backstage thing that happened and the cameras didn't catch it. This is on stage. It's part of the show. And he says to her, I noticed last week you have the most adorable, pretty eyes, he said to me. Do you have a boyfriend? No, sir, I said. What the F kind of a comment is that to say to a little girl? She's 8 years old, you old nasty man. I've noticed you have the most beautiful blue eyes. Do you have a boyfriend? She's 8. And then when she says she didn't have a boyfriend, he goes, why not? Because she's 8. And Brittany's response was, they're mean. And Ed goes, boyfriends? You mean like boys are mean? I'm not mean. How about me? Brittany goes, well, it depends. And he's like, I get that a lot. Yeah, I think you do. Let's watch. Let's watch.
Last week, you had the most adorable, pretty eyes. You have a boyfriend?
No, sir.
Why not?
They're mean.
Boyfriends? You mean all boys are mean? I'm not mean. How about me?
Well, it depends.
I get that a lot.
Wasn't that weird? Anyway, unfortunately, Marty gets ahead of her in that scenario, and she lost that little round on Star Search. But this commenced the flying back and forth from New York. Now she's got stuff to do. You know, it's no longer just winning a little prize in a school gymnasium. It's the real deal now. And they're scrimping and pinching to make ends meet. She says that when she was in New York, her talent agent got her a job as an understudy in an off-Broadway musical called Ruthless. It was inspired by The Bad Seed, all about Eve, Mame, and Gypsy. She played a sociopathic child star named Tina Denmark. The other understudy, interestingly, was Natalie Portman. So they're hanging out together. And while they were there, they got an apartment in the city. And it's her mom, baby, Jamie Lynn, and Britney. Just chilling. And that's going to become a theme. I don't know what happens to Dad. I don't know what happened to Brian. But the mom and Jamie Lynn and Britney are hanging out all the time. And they're like this little core group. And they're staying in New York. Britney's going to the public school called the Professional Performing Arts School, and she would take classes near at Broadway Dance Center, but mostly she passed her time at the Players Theater downtown. It sounds like a miserable existence. Miserable. She said the experience was a validation in some way. It was proof I had enough talent to make it in the theatrical world, but it was a grueling schedule. There was no time to be a regular kid, or really to make friends, because I had to work nearly every day, and on Saturdays there were 2 shows. I mean, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous that her mom would be like okay with her living this lifestyle. I can't even fathom in my mind a parent that would be like, I really want my child to be a star. No, you don't. Do you love your child? You don't want them to be a star. This is no kind of existence for a 9-year-old kid. Every minute of your life is taken up with, getting ready to perform for, a mass of grown-ups. I mean, like, your life matters. You are not a commodity, to be used up at the tender age of 9. She really didn't love being an understudy because she had to be at the theater all night long, up until midnight, with the hope that maybe something would happen to the girl playing the character Tina, and then she might be able to get on stage. But you're just waiting around in the ease, waiting for a catastrophe to strike so that you can go out and play the rest of the part, and there's no hope that that's going to happen. Although, after a little while, the person playing Tina, her name was Laura Bell Bundy, she left, and then Britney was able to play the role. But she says, I was awfully worn out. I mean, as an adult, I couldn't keep that schedule. By the time Christmas came around, I desperately wanted to go home. And then I learned I was supposed to perform on Christmas Day. In tears, I asked my mom, am I really going to have to do this for Christmas? In my little girl mind, I didn't understand why I'd want to do that, continue performing through the holidays. So I quit the show and I went home. What I think is really interesting is her priorities were actually exactly in line right there. Yeah, why do you need to perform through the holidays? You are a child. It is not on you to provide for this family. That's your dad's job. That's your mom's job. It's not your job. And you should not have the whip at your back on Christmas Day just so the family can continue to line their pockets with what little cash you're able to scrape together. It's unbelievably abusive. Unbelievably abusive. I mean, really, why was this her life? Because the parents in charge were like, keep going, Britney, keep going, Britney, keep going, Britney. Her mom and her dad, I cannot even believe they would be okay with this for their child. But they're so checked out, both of them. The dad, I mean, he's almost never there. He's always on some bender. The mom smoking Virginia Slims with her mom, gossiping or, running around after Brian, beating him with a wooden spoon. The mom could care less. She's probably so thrilled that her daughter has this much talent and sees it as, this reflection of her as a mother. So excited that Britney's doing all these things lately. We're so excited for Britney. Britney is being driven into the ground at the tender age of 9. Anyway, she says the schedule of New York City theater was just too rough on me at that age. One good thing did come out of it, though. I learned how to sing in a theater with small acoustics. Well, that's good. Congratulations on that. But things began to take a positive turn, I suppose, if you want to look at it that way. She quit the theater situation in New York, but she did go and audition for the Mickey Mouse Club again, and she got her spot this time. She said that while she was waiting around to hear if she'd gotten into the Mickey Mouse Club, they went back to Kentwood, where she continued to attend Park Lane Academy. She said, I became a basketball point guard. I was tiny for 11, but I could run the plays. People imagined I was a cheerleader, but I never was. I danced a little bit on the side, but at school I wanted to play ball, so I did in spite of my height. My thing was to steal the ball away from an opposing player, mid-dribble, run down and make a layup. I loved the thrill of quickly weaving around the other team. Just the rush of no script, the play being unpredictable, completely unknown made me feel so alive. I was so small and so sweet that no one saw me coming. It wasn't the same as being on stage in New York City, but under the bright lights on the court waiting for the sound of applause, it felt like the next best thing. Constantly in need of validation, this one. And I don't blame her. Hear me now. You know, every book I've ever done, when the child is young, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to condemn the decisions and the reactions of the child. Hardly. Now, I will condemn the adults in the situation, and I do condemn. I condemn the father. I condemn the mother. I'm sick of this. I'm so sick of this in this book already, of these parents just, throwing Britney to the wolves. And for what? I mean, do they not understand the weight, the mantle they carry as parents to shepherd these children through life? To make sure that they make it to adulthood, sound of body and mind? I am so not a perfect parent. Never hear me say that I have made all the right decisions. Hardly. But when I look at the fact that poor Britney, at the age of 9, was waiting tables so that she could go and then, like a slave, work in the theater till midnight, night after night after night, and then, was expected to perform twice on Saturdays and then on Christmas. It's like, hey, what's going on over there, Mr. and Mrs. Spears? Y'all okay? Do y'all need to take a stint at the asylum in Mandeville? Is that what's going to take for y'all? I mean, it's just outrageous. It's outrageous that any parent would just be okay with this. Anyway, so she's waiting around to see if she got into the Mickey Mouse Club. Poor little things over there just trying to get some applause out on the basketball court, because if people are clapping for her, then she knows she's doing okay. She's not going to hear at home that she's doing okay. Her dad, nothing can please her father. Her mom's too distracted to be like, good job, Britney. But if other people can applaud her, then her parents will turn their attention to her. Notice that the only time her parents ever really seemed like they became invested was when she won that first little show with her little top hat and her cane at the age of 5. Then suddenly her parents were like, oh, Britney might be a little cash cow. Let's see what we can get Britney to do. Because that is validating for the parents. They don't care to be validated in the sense of, hey, I, kept a tidy house and I provided for my family and I, was calm and rational with my kids. There's no validation there. But if everybody can be clapping for the fruit of my loins, okay, now I feel good about myself.